I want to admit, and I'm not proud of it, but I want to admit that there are times I get frustrated with God. Now, before you get all judgy and be like, you're the pastor. Let's listen. In my spirit, I get frustrated with God because I've got something going on and I cannot get God to do what I want him to do. And there are times where I'm like, God, if you would. But logically, maybe you've been here, but logically I know I'm not actually mad at God. I'm not actually frustrated at God because my theology tells me that everything good is God, that God is everything good. He's the source of everything good in my life. He's the source of every sort of love and acceptance and hope and peace and all these things. So inwardly, maybe you won't admit it because you're holier than me, but I'll admit it that there are times that there's just like this conflict. Like on one hand, I want to be frustrated with God, and on the other hand, I'm like, you're not allowed to be frustrated with God. What are you doing? But it's always directed, and there's guilt. You know, you always feel guilty because you're not supposed to be frustrated with God. But there's always a problem that I think he could solve that he's not solving. Ever been there? Here, I've got 99 problems. Anyway. What do you do when God ignores your problems? Because listen, we all came here, that's how we find Jesus. We find Jesus because we have this problem and we think maybe he could help us fix it. And so we come in and we're like, yeah, are you what I'm looking for? And, you know, we shop around because we have this thing, whatever it is, purpose or peace or relationships or finances. People come in here because they're looking for a girlfriend or a boyfriend. And you know how I know that? Because the minute they find one, gone, and they never come back. Found it. People follow boyfriends and girlfriends out of church. But we have this problem, and what we deeply, deeply want is we want God to prioritize our problem the way that we prioritize our problem, and if he will, then we'll work out a system. I'll give him what he wants, he gives me what I want. And I know this seems like very, very simple, and that you guys would never think this way. I'm just telling you, the average person comes to Jesus with a problem and goes, what can you do about this? John chapter 4, verse 1, and this is not part of the story. I'm just adding this on because I think it's interesting. It says, now Jesus learned that the Pharisees had heard that he was gaining and baptizing more disciples than John. Does this not sound like the most religious thing ever? The leaders were like, oh, Jesus is winning. Although, in fact, it was not Jesus who was baptizing, but his disciples. So what happens when people get competitive and religious and rules and they get all uppity and high on themselves and their practices? What does Jesus do? I'll tell you. So he left. I think he does that in churches too. He's like, I'll just circle back. He left. Here's the other thing is that the Pharisees would avoid Samaria. So they get all religious and high and mighty, and Jesus is like, nope. And Jesus leaves, and he goes to Samaria, because Samaria, according to the Pharisee standards, the Samaritans were half-breeds. They were the lowest level, and the Pharisees, they're so concerned with being the highest level, they can't be associated with the lower level. What would that do to their reputation? Can't be seen with those people. The other Pharisees will never let me live it down. So let's be clear, and we're just starting. Jesus leaves the higher-ups and goes to the lowest. Just as a point of reference. Okay. Now, he had to go through Samaria. So he came to a town in Samaria called Sychar. People would go around. They would go the longer way around so they didn't go through Samaria. The Pharisees were like, oh, we got to go. Well, we can't go that way because, you know. Jesus is like, I got to go. To a town called Sychar, near the plot of ground Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, tired as he was from the journey, sat down by the well. It was about noon. What Jesus is doing here is he is orchestrating a demonstration of the gospel. Let me tell you what I mean. I could stand up here and go, Jesus says this and Jesus does this, but if you see it, then you understand it better. If you can understand it as a human interaction, then you'll understand the gospel of Jesus more clearly. So what Jesus is doing is like, I got an idea. I got this thing I'm about to do so that you'll understand who I am better. He went to a place, he wanted to meet a person who was confused about her problems. She had problems, but she was confused about them. And I would suggest that if your problems are overwhelming you, it's possible that you might be confused about your problems. And if you are confused about your problems, you will be most definitely confused about the solution. Did I say that? I think you get it. But if you are confused about your problems, you will for sure be confused about how to solve them. Okay. She was really frustrated with the wrong problems, and she was pursuing the wrong solutions. Verse 7, when a Samaritan woman came to draw water. So what was the need? You're going to like this, I think. And if not, it'll be done in half an hour. What was the need that brought the Samaritan woman to Jesus? Can I read it again? She came to draw water. So what was her need? What was her problem that brought her to Jesus? She needed water. That was it. This is just a lady. She's got all kinds of problems, but she's not wearing those outwardly. We don't wear our problems on the outside. We wear our problems on the inside. So the problems that, I love it when preachers are like, I just have to be transparent. I'm really struggling with something. You're like, oh, we're going to get something good. And they're like, I just am a perfectionist. You're like, really? That's your big confession? Because sometimes it's okay for people to know a manageable amount of our problems, right? She just needs water. And her need brought her to Jesus, but who had already set up the meeting? See, you're here because you have a problem. Maybe your problem is you want people to get off your back, and so you're just going to try it and make them happy. I don't know. But we all come to Jesus because we have this need, and we're like, okay, God, here's my problem. Here's this thing I need you to do. And it says that her need brought her to Jesus, but it was Jesus who orchestrated it, meaning Jesus was here waiting on you, and he is using a problem to bring you to him. So before we get so mad at our problems, let me remind you, most of the time, those are what is drawing you to Jesus. It's not your happiness. No, he's like, I'm just so happy. You know what I need? Jesus. Usually, when people consider Jesus as like a 10-year sentence, I need Jesus. I'm facing a conviction. Come on, God, this is the last time. I will never drive home in that condition again. Okay, I'm getting too personal. Her need brought her to Jesus. Jesus lined it up. She had some obvious issues. What we're going to find is that this lady had been married 5 times. She just was determined. The right one was out there. She just hadn't found him yet. She's married 5 times. Culturally, that would have been not very good. But if there were 4 more and a 5th, she was living with her new boyfriend because, let's be honest, you don't want to just rush into anything, right? Been down this road a few times. I'm going to make sure. Because we're people. And when we don't understand our problems, we mismanage the solutions. The solution to her marriage problem was not living with a guy to check it out this time. See how when we misidentify our problems, we get the solutions wrong? So this lady is a wreck. She's probably very attractive. The Bible says that she'd been married a lot in a time where after 1 or 2, people should have been like, but she's hot. And they're like, I'll give it a shot. I'll try it. Men, if we're being honest, sometimes we have like an appetite for crazy. And we're like, hot and crazy? I want to give her a name, and I don't think it's fair, but like she's always been like the woman at the well, the woman at the well, the woman at the, like you can kind of get like, I'm not going to do it. I want to give her a name. I'm not going to do it. We can assume she was pretty awful. Like she was rough. Like, listen, she was it's not like she came to Jesus and was like, how can I help you? Like what we're going to see is that she wore spikes, and the reason she wore spikes is she didn't want to be known too well. It's probably what had killed a few marriages, is that she didn't need people getting too close, because when people get too close, then you run the risk of being known, and when you don't think a lot of yourself, you're afraid someone else won't think a lot of yourself also, and so this is just like these problems have just begun perpetuating. She had all kinds of problems. She wasn't very well liked because she was coming to the well at noon when no one else was there. So instantly, we know a lot about her. We know a lot about her. We know that, okay. I want to be, and I'm not going to, no. Verse 9. So she comes to the well, and Jesus goes, will you get me something to drink? She's like, we're not going to do whatever this is you think we're going to do here. I'm just trying, I got a problem. I need some water. Right there, just water. She says, you're a Jew and I'm a Samaritan woman. How can you ask me for a drink? See, this idea that we get so desperate we find our way to Jesus is kind of a laughing thing anyway. The gospel says Jesus finds us, and then usually when he finds us, we're like, no. And he's like, no, I think you will too. Come on. She has all the problems, yet she doesn't seem on her way to fixing any of them, does she? I mean, she's living with a guy right now. Totally just, that's completely taboo in her day. Like, she's not on her way to getting any better. She encounters Jesus, and she doesn't recognize that it's Jesus. She's just like, I got a problem. I think I got a solution, and right now, you're kind of in the way. And he's like, let's interact. And she's like, what if we didn't? Jesus answered her, if you knew the gift of God. Now listen to this. She's like, no, just move. Just move out of the way. And Jesus says this. Jesus answered her, if you knew the gift of God and who it is that asks you for a drink, you would have asked him and he would have given you living water. You can just see the look on her face of like, I don't care about anything that you're saying. I just want water. And he's like talking to her in philosophy, and she's like, no, you're whatever you think that you're getting accomplished. No, because remember, she's pretty. She's probably got a reputation in town. For all she knows, who knows what this guy wants from her? But she's not having it. And so then he starts like, but if you know who I am, blah, 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 blah. And she's like, Now, think of this, because we all come to Jesus with a problem. Jesus is blocking her solution. Not only is he not helping her with her problem, he seems to be standing between her and a solution. Have you ever been to this place with Jesus? Where like, Jesus, what about this? You come to church because you're broke, and you're like, I'm so sick of being broke. And the preacher goes, you need to give more. And you're like, Jesus is in the way of my solution. I'm so sick of people hurting me. You need to forgive. I'm not doing the damage. It seems like when we come to Jesus with our problem, Jesus kind of just sits in the way. It's like, you know what we should do? Talk. No one wants to talk less than someone with a problem. He's standing in her way. You can see how it goes. Verse 11, sir. You see, she's like, okay, you're not getting it. See, because at this point, the dynamic, the perspective is wrong. She sees herself one way, she sees this guy some way, but the perspective is off. You have nothing. This is her answer. Sir, you have nothing to draw with, and the well's really deep. So I don't know what your plan is, but it isn't working. You don't even, how many times, Jesus, you don't even have a bucket. This is how we address Jesus. We come to him with our problem. We're like, could you, hey, where can you get this living water? She is full on in her, we're starting to understand like maybe why marriage had been a little bit of kind of like a hurdle for her. Because she's not being like real kind and like understands, like, listen, you don't even have a bucket. How are you gonna get this living water? She's almost being sarcastic. Here Jesus is extending salvation to her and the Samaritans, and she's like, but the water? Are you greater than our father Jacob, who gave us this well and drank from it himself, as also his sons and his livestock? Now she's making fun of Jesus. This she's good at just like alienating men quickly. You don't even have a bucket. And she insults him. What are you, better than Jacob? What do you think the demeanor of Jesus would be? Because I think if it were me, I'd be like, you know what? I'm trying to do something. I quit. Whatever. I'm out. Jesus answered, everyone who drinks this water will be thirsty again. And she's like, here we go again. More philosophy, just what I was hoping for. But whoever drinks the water I give them will never thirst again. Indeed, the water I give them will become in them a spring of water welling up to eternal life. She's not understanding it, but here's what she does know. She hates going to the well. She hates being exposed in public. What she really wants, her solution would have been like, okay, water, great. I never have to leave my house again? Great. That would have been a solution to a problem, but her problem wasn't her problem, was it? Therefore, her solution couldn't have been the solution. And Jesus is addressing the actual problem, and she's frustrated because she's trying to direct his attention to her little problem, her today problem. her this week problem, her this year, her this season problem. Like, I'm in a season and I need some help, but Jesus goes, well, if I solve that, it doesn't solve the problem. I met with some missionaries from Turkey this week. It was a funny thing. Lacey said, hey, we got a meeting with this guy over here. And I'm like, okay. So we go, and this guy wasn't there. This guy was. And Lacey's like, oh, what are you guys doing here? And like, it was them the whole time. We were confused on who we were meeting until we walked into the restaurant because we're so smart. And he was telling us that in Turkey, the concept is that, hey, you accept Jesus and he'll take all your problems away. What do you think people are going to say? Nah. So they're like, what do I have to say? Baptism? Sure. And they get baptized, and they're like, when do I get all the money and when do I get to quit working? Like, the gospel has gotten so skewed that this concept of Jesus is turned to like, hey, you come to Jesus, he'll give you a lot of water. Well, that's what I came here for. Let's do it. The woman said this, you're giving what? Okay, I don't understand that, but sure. Water, you will never thirst again. And she's like, great, I'll take it. She said, sir, give me this water so I won't get thirsty and have to keep coming here to draw water. What she's saying is, every time I come here, it's painful. Every time I come here, it hurts. I'm an outcast. I have no voice in this community. I'm not well loved. Half of my problems are my fault. The other half are definitely my fault. If you could just remove me from the pain of having to come to this well, sure, I'll take it. This is where it all changes, right here, because this is what Jesus does. We come to Jesus with our little problem, and we go, hey, this is our problem. He said, go call your husband and come back. See, that's different, isn't it? Sure, yeah, I'll do that. Go grab your husband. I have no husband. She's not opening up. She's not like, listen, this whole marriage thing, I don't know. It's not for me. Like, I'm a wreck. I'm a terrible cook. I'm just kidding. As short of an answer she gets, I don't have a husband. Jesus said to her, you're right when you say you have no husband. The fact is, you've had 5 husbands, and the man you now have is not your husband. What you've just said is quite true. You're just going for the throat. Jeez. Okay. Seems a little judgy. I was just coming to the well because I had a need. And Jesus goes, no, you came to me because I said so. Because I got a plan. I'm going to do some things in your life that you couldn't do for yourself because your problem is not your problem. That's the moment where we tend to pull back from Jesus. We walk into church, we're like, I was just hoping to be a good person. I just want to be a good person. I just want to know, And when Jesus looks past your need that you're showing him, because we all have this need we want to show Jesus. Like, oh, I'm a perfectionist. When Jesus looks past our need and he shows you the need that you don't want to face, she didn't come there to have a conversation about her failures. Who would? She came at noon so she didn't have to face her failures. See, we come to Jesus and we go, we only want a little bit, so we're only offering a little bit. Can we work something out? And Jesus is like, well, that's a good starting point. It's a good place to start. He goes on to tell her, he said, hey, I'm going to bring all the Samaritans in. You guys have been outcasts. Salvation has been unattainable. It's been unachievable. Salvation was from the Jews. You're this thing, and I'm going to fix that. That is bigger than water today, right? Like, Jesus is like, we're talking about the cross, we're talking about the crucifixion, we're talking about resurrection, we're talking about salvation. So many times you're dealing with Jesus on this level, and Jesus is dealing with you on this level. We don't always want this level. Sometimes we just want to be more comfortable with this little level. I'm there. Listen, I'm there with God right now on some things where I'm like, God, I'm not sure I want to pay what you're asking. Don't beat yourself up. That's kind of this continual thing. You guys going, I'm dealing with you up here. You're dealing with me down here. Jesus said, I'm going to save everybody. I'm even going to save the bad girls. The girls that are still there when the lights come on at 2 o'clock in the morning. Oh, y'all thought I didn't know about that? The people who don't think of themselves as being worthy. I'm gonna do some things for people who have giant problems and they're trying to solve them with little bitty solutions. We're hoping the little doses of solutions will be enough just to get us through life. Where do you think addiction comes from? The root of addiction is a little solution for a giant problem, and eventually even the solution becomes a problem. Can I say that one more time? Because I feel like that deserves like at least a few amens. Like, why do you think we battle with addiction? We've got these big, giant problems, but we only want to deal with a little bit of them at a time, just the manageable part. And Jesus is like, no, I'm not going to deal with your little issue. I'm going to deal with the big issues. The woman said this. She's still not convinced. She says, I know that the Messiah called Christ is coming. When he comes, he'll explain everything to us. You ever get to that point where somebody wants to have like a real debate about Jesus-y things and you're like, okay, I don't. One of my least favorite things in the world is a debate with someone who loves debating. I just kind of want to put my little paw on their head and be like, just shh. Just go to sleep. Just go to sleep. She just sidesteps. She's like, okay, whatever. When the Messiah gets here, he'll figure it all out. And Jesus says this. Then Jesus declared, I, the one speaking to you, I am he. Wow. Now that changes literally everything. Because listen, your problem is never your problem, okay? The problem that you have, that's never your problem. Your problem is not your problem. Your problem is not your sin. Your problem is not your religion. Your problem is you and Jesus. Sin is a byproduct. Religion is a byproduct. Your mistakes, byproduct. Your problem in life is you and Jesus and the way that you interface. That's your problem. That's the problem with humanity, is how we interface with Jesus. We deal with it through sin. We deal with it through religious practices to try to make ourselves feel better. But Jesus goes, you don't even know who I am. The problems that you see are the problems that brought you to the well. See, we've been taught that Jesus is the solution to our problems. God is not God of your problems. This is not fun to preach. In fact, if your problems are what's bringing you to Jesus, why would he take them away? If it's your need for water that brings you to Jesus, then Jesus, the worst thing he could do would be to fix the problem that you want fixed. And yet you get mad at him when he won't fix your problems. I'm preaching to myself right now. Solomon. We have an example. God solved every one of Solomon's issues. King Solomon says he's the wealthiest person in the history of mankind. He was the wealthiest person. Go read Ecclesiastes. You know what he says? Life is pointless. Nothing matters. No problems is a problem. Nothing matters. Food has no taste. Nothing has anything of value. Like, life just goes on and it's pointless. The most destitute chapter or book in the Bible is Ecclesiastes, from a guy who God solved his problem. What if God would have solved this lady's problem? Said, you want never-ending water? Here you go. She would have become a recluse. She would have withdrawn from her community. It would have destroyed her. What she came to Jesus and said was, Jesus, please ruin my life. And Jesus said, no. No, I'm going to fix your life. My life isn't fixable. And he goes, you're right. That's why I'm here. I love that about Solomon. Everything's pointless. He's sitting in his castle. I think of Megamind when he finally beats Metro Man, and he's like, this is all stupid. I need an opponent. If you haven't seen the movie, it's very spiritual. He's not the Lord of your problems. I think most of the time, God is like, no, I put those there. That's why I'm standing between you and the solution. That's why you're trying to get to the solution, and I'm blocking you from the solution that you're mad at me for not solving. He's not a God of your problems. He's a God of your soul. We ruin this concept. We're like, God, why aren't you dealing with my problems? And God's like, why aren't you dealing with your problems? Your soul is a wreck. Because you want Jesus to be your partner or your homie or, just like your solution. Like, how many times have you, don't raise your hand. How many times have you prayed to win the lottery? And yet throughout history, money has never been a solution. God just solved my problems. God goes, my problem, you are your own problem. No matter where you go, these problems just follow you through marriages and through failures and through addictions. Like, maybe you're the problem. And maybe, just maybe, I can solve it for you. But I can't solve it sitting on the sidelines giving you advice. How much is it going to cost? Everything. If you haven't come to terms with the fact that Jesus' price for what he does is everything, rude awakening, that's where this whole game goes. Preachers will stand up and be, Jesus just wants your 10%. No, he doesn't. He wants your soul. He wants everything. He wants to do more with you than you can do with yourself. And some of us can't even part with a little bit of money. C.S. Lewis said this. I love C.S. Lewis. He said, imagine yourself as a living house. You're a house. You're this living, breathing, your house. God comes in to rebuild that house. At first, perhaps you can understand what he's doing. He's getting the drains right, stopping the leaks in the roof, and so on. You knew those jobs needed doing, and so you're not surprised. Is everybody with me so far? God comes in, starts fixing up the little things. But presently, he starts knocking the house about in a way that hurts abominably and does not seem to make any sense. Anybody ever been here with God, where all of a sudden you're like living for God and things are going good and things just, the bomb goes off and things just fall apart and you're like, I came to you for a solution to my problems and it seems like you're just making more of them. What on earth is he up to? The explanation is that he is building quite a different house from the one you thought of. Throwing out a new wing here, putting on an extra floor there, running up towers, making courtyards. Listen to this part right here. This is why I love C.S. Lewis. You thought you were being made into a decent little cottage. He is building a palace. Here's why. He intends to come live in it himself. I love that God goes, it's too little. Your problems, they're too little. And if you don't understand your problems, you're not going to understand a solution. That's what you need me for. You're not just going to settle into this broken, flawed version of life that just gets through it. I'm going to come in and I'm going to open life up again and I'm going to create you into something. Because this lady just wanted to be left alone. And Jesus goes, left alone? You're going to change this whole village. You're the key that unlocks this door. And she would have been like, me? There's at least 5 people in this town that don't even talk to me anymore. Listen to this, verse 39, skipping ahead. Many of the Samaritans from that town believed in him because of the woman's testimony. He saw value that she didn't see. She saw a solution that she didn't even think was possible. What happened? Jesus comes in and starts knocking down doors and creating new life in her. And she's like, whoa, 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 whoa. I just wanted water. And he's like, no. Oh, no. No. It's going to cost a little bit more than that. He told me everything I ever did. So when the Samaritans came to him, they urged him to stay with them, and he stayed 2 more days. And because of his words, many more became believers. If you want to know where it goes with Jesus, I'm going to rip the Band-Aid off for you. Don't say I didn't warn you. It's going to cost you everything. And a lot of times, our problem is how tightly we have a hold of the things that we think are solutions. We're gripping so tightly to what we believe is a solution, and sometimes God's solution is loosening our grip on things that we thought we couldn't do without. Until there's freedom to live life without too tight of a grip on anything. This idea that you came in this morning, listen, how many of you guys, don't raise your hand, please don't raise your hand. How many of you guys are so aware of your failures and somewhere in your mind you've accepted that the problems are never gonna go away because of what you've done wrong? I mean, this whole concept, God, oh, you're a little cottage and it's gonna work out good. And God's like, no, I'm building a palace because I intend to live in it. God created this woman for a purpose, and she had done everything she could do to mess it up. Her problem was not her problem. Her solution could not possibly be her solution. Her problem, your problem, my problem is the way that I view Jesus. Who can ask me for everything? Who can ask me for everything? Only a king. Only my king could ask me for everything. And if I won't give him everything, that means I'm the king of my own life. See, there's our struggle. There's our problem. There's our religion. That's where it all comes from. That's the seed that it all grows out of. Who gets to be king? Let's pray. Lord, give us vision on who you are. Help us get over ourselves. Help us to identify our little problems. Help us to identify the things that, Lord, those are what brought us to you. Instead of being mad about our problems, give us an endearing concept of the fact that our problems brought us to you. Show us who you are. Teach us who you are. Let us see who you are. And in that, let us see who we are. Pray in Jesus' name, amen.